What's up, everyone? I'm JaVonni Brustow. This is the Media Mogul News Update. I'm your host, and everyone, thank you for tuning in. And my guest for today is award-winning coach, author, and conservative activist, Felecia Killings. How are you, Felecia?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, first, I wanted to mention you have a conscious conservative movement, and on your website,
Yeah.
it mentions that, and these are your words, when we point out our problems in our communities, we immediately present viable solutions for the people so we each prosper. So, tell us why you thought that was necessary.
Yeah. Many folks who have been affiliated with our movement on Twitter have seen how certain individuals like to use certain talking points that basically degrade Black Americans, the community as a whole, if you will. And they'll say things like, well, if we don't talk about, the problems, then we won't get to solve them. And I'm like, well, you're not exactly presenting a solution. You're not presenting anything that's going to be useful. So, what I tell folks is when it comes to our movement, we're not just going to talk about things like the typical talking points. We're going to actually present viable solutions with Black Americans, and we're going to show them how conservatism can be empowering. That's the whole premise of the movement, to be empowering. We don't want to degrade, we don't want to dehumanize. Um, and if we see anybody getting on that kind of, trip, then we're just like, come on back in or get dragged.
Appreciate that. Or get dragged.
Or get dragged.
I've noticed a little bit of that from you lately, and I've
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Can't lie
Yes.
there. But see, now if you had a budget of say $35 million to do
Woo!
the outreach that you wanted, I know we've heard that number before. What would you
Yeah.
do in the community?
Oh man, where would I begin?
And you
We
can
would.
tell us about that number. By the way, I got that from you.
Okay. We heard that CO had received millions of dollars for Blexit. I'm not even sure if that includes the donations she had acquired just by being on Twitter. I mean, we have no clue. But it produced absolutely nothing. In fact, the people who garnered the most support for Trump, if you will, was Trump's black camp. And I think there was some report that said that he had invested some $20 million in the last leg of the election on black outreach. With with that much money, a lot can be done. For one, we
Right.
would hire a full team of communication experts to go into various communities. We would set up shop. We would evangelize the message. I mean, so many people would be full time employees within this movement with that kind of resources, because we believe that Black voters should have choices. We saw some things happening, like Blexit had their different events with no Black people there. Um, it kind
Yeah,
of,
I know that there was. It came to my attention there was one in Atlanta whereby
yeah.
black people had to be bussed into Atlanta. How did that happen?
Tree of Logic actually did that story. She went to the Blexit event in Atlanta. I didn't go. I won't allow myself to go. Um, and she was like, I think it was like a couple hundred, but it was primarily white Americans. And they had to sit in the back. All the Black people had to sit in the front for optics purposes. Tree of Logic, she brought all that to the forefront. And to me, when you have to fake the funk, when you have to pretend like you're getting some kind of numbers and results, ugh, then we have to look and see, well, was this investment worth it? I think it's important for us to differentiate between her type of Black outreach and what Trump actually did in the last few months. I really admire Trump's attempts for effective Black outreach. And I really think that's why he scored 18% of Black male votes and about 8% of Black female votes. So he had the increase. But it's just funny how the CEO is taking credit for that and saying that Blexit is the reason why that happened. So, anyways, it's important to differentiate who actually made the inroads, and Black voters have already expressed to us who was most effective. It wasn't her messaging. It wasn't any of the typical slave narrative or slave talking points that came from that side. It was just Trump talking economics, and it just appealed to certain folks within Black America. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the RNC pulls upon and builds upon the efforts that Trump has started.
Right. And speaking of outreach and, well, slave narrative, I just happened to come across this on your Twitter today. A
Okay.
number of candidates, Black candidates, ran,
Yes.
some who won, such as Burgess Owens.
Yes.
And there is, of course, there would be leaf blowing right next to me while I'm doing this. Of course, of course.
Uh,
Excuse me. But, not everyone won. There is Kimberly Classic,
yeah.
someone who I like because I love Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I was happy to see someone running,
Yeah.
yay Kim. And I had pointed out that there was well, I'd seen some of the criticism that she had
Mhm.
received on
Yeah.
the policy, and I just said, well, instead of harping on this,
Yeah.
that I felt like contributing the names of or the name of someone that I knew in Baltimore, a young Black guy who
Mhm.
had his own HVAC company and was involved in the community. They were supposed to be doing an interview at some point in time. I don't know if it happened.
Mhm.
But I thought that I would help instead of being a part of the problem. And,
Yeah.
there's more than enough people telling you what
Yeah.
you're doing wrong.
Right.
But since
Right.
I brought her up in the election, what do you think went wrong there? I did
Mhm.
see some of what your commentary was. I was just curious. Take a
Well,
look.
I at first I was on board, as I was pretty much with anybody who was considered themselves Black conservative and running in these pretty hard to win seats. I was like, go for it. I love it. We'll do the best we can to support. But what happened was each time these individuals would get some additional clout, all of a sudden they didn't know somebody. And I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about folks who would, use people's platform like Sunny Johnson's platform, and then all of a sudden they don't know her. They're not interested in interviewing with her when she has follow-up questions. So what happened was with Kim, she ran a pretty great campaign in the sense that she appealed to a lot of people. And I think her numbers were 25% of the votes she secured. So I don't know how much another Republican before her was able to secure. That's probably some kind of numbers that would be important to look at.
Right.
But she didn't win the hearts of the people in her district. And that's who you have to win over. These are the people who are going to vote for you. So, it's commendable for her to go around everywhere and be known nationwide as this person who's running. But if the people in your district don't have a connection with you, they're not going to vote for you. So that's the thing that was my contention. The same thing, same kind of I don't want to call it criticism, but just an assessment, even with Angie Staten King. I'm like, well, do the people know you like that? Are they interested in what you have to say? Are they, do they have a connection with you? And if
Right.
the answer is no, then you're not going to win. So, that's what we have there. And both of these individuals have said things on Twitter that have been just flat out disrespectful to Black voters. And I'm like, these
I
are
get the
Black districts.
screenshots.
Huh? What did you say?
I get the screenshots. When I decide to retweet someone and then someone say, "Hey, did you see this?" Even the guy that I suggested that she speak to, because I said, I want to try a different approach here.
Yeah.
And, I think I went to his page, and surely enough, the same screenshots that were sent to me were across his page, and I said what I tend to tell everyone that when you have the opportunity to
Mhm.
be heard and to, let elected officials or those who could potentially be an official in your district in front of you, to take advantage of it
Yeah.
and to have a conversation. And that was what he did. One of the conversations he recorded, I think it was him telling her about herself first, but
Okay.
it progressed into something better. He showed
Okay.
screenshots of how how they had warmed up to each other and whatnot. And I said,
Okay.
but again, if they're in front of you, you need to use that, use
Yeah.
that opportunity, even if it is calling them, you know, a couple things to get it out of your system just because.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that, she possibly runs again. I don't know if she will.
Likewise.
Huh?
I said, likewise.
Yeah. I don't think Angela's going to run again. She announced that she's not going to run for Congress. So I'm like, well, all right then. But I think Kim has a good opportunity if she keeps pushing it in that same district and keeps making herself um, palatable to that community. I think she can do a pretty good job. But, it's a matter of if that's her motive. Was she actually looking to serve them in that capacity? So it will be very interesting to watch. Kim and I had our tit for tat on Twitter a few times. But ultimately, I want to see, Black women succeed. But if you're going to run your mouth on Black people, I'm half crazy.
You
So,
know, and look, so you recently moved to Atlanta. I
yes.
recently moved to Virginia. I've been down here for about 3 years, and it's a similar problem. I
Hmm.
mean, it's not just the running your mouth about Black people. It's the fact
Yeah.
that, I mean, I'm in the South,
Yeah.
and the rhetoric is 20 times worse here. And
Woo.
I told you before. Well, before the show started, I mentioned that you happened to come up when I was out at the polls. Like all these conservatives that happened to know, which is good, a good thing.
Yeah.
But part of what he said about you was, you criticizing Candace Owens, and
Okay.
I pointed out that I've done my share as well,
Yeah.
and it's in taking the person out of it, just
Yeah.
constantly speaking negatively or berating Black people for their choices. For
Yeah.
one, did it ever occur to you that maybe people don't want to vote the same way that you that you do? That this is an
Yeah.
actual conscious decision.
Yeah.
Um, so as I said, I told him that I've done my share of it, but at the same time, we try to bring about solutions as well. It's just hard when
Yeah.
you're hearing the same thing from 30 people around you. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of folks have been like, there's this war between Felicia. Why is she always talking about Owens and stuff? It's like, no, I'm actually talking about that rhetoric. I have
Yeah.
no problem with the woman. If she wants to be successful, great. That's fantastic. But why do we give these folks license to beat up Black folks publicly and then we just let it happen? Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna duke it out. You know what I mean? So either we can go toe to
Be
toe on,
responsible for your words.
right. Exactly. So I'm like, either we can go toe to toe, we can talk about it over Twitter, or you can appear on Sunny's Corner like you wanted to, or whatever. Just something. But if you're going to continue to beat up voters that we absolutely need in order to continue winning, I'm going to fight back. That's just
And
what
just
I'm going to
and
do.
just know
So,
that this doesn't happen with any other community.
yes,
No
I
other
know.
demographic gets this. Just and we're supposed to smile and grin and bear it. Some people tell
And
me, well, other people are
yes.
not as, they have thicker skin than you. Really?
Yeah, we're not supposed to have these engaging dialogues. We're not supposed to think differently. We're all supposed to be on the same page and the same team. And I'm like, that's just as bad as the left saying all the things that they say about you white folks. So,
Okay, forget about that.
yeah.
And now, And I don't think I told everyone that I mentioned about losing my voice and whatnot
I
earlier
saw
this
on
week.
your Facebook. I saw the post. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, because I just wiped my nose earlier. I said that I this is probably the longest I've been without a tissue
Okay.
all day. But yeah, this week probably.
Hmm.
Now, something I hadn't seen you talk about was you have a you're working on a single mother communal living project.
Yes, I'm working on
I
this
got excited when I
project.
saw that.
Yeah. So, back in, oh my gosh, 2016, my daughter and I, we moved to Elk Grove, California. And this was a huge step for me because I had left a relationship, I left a marriage, and um, I basically left my family. I said, I need to just be by myself for a while to get some things together.
Hmm.
And we found ourselves living among other single moms and other families in these communities. And we just kind of grew together. It was beautiful. And I realized that communal living is this really great option for single moms or for women who are trying to transition.
Yeah,
And they just don't have all of the fun resources that we can use as middle class Americans or
right.
upper class. And so I said, why don't I create some kind of program where single moms can, basically connect with a ministry like mine or even the Conscious Conservative Network, where they can have this kind of support. And so, in moving to Atlanta, Georgia, I'm excited because in the next couple of years, I'm hoping to launch the actual physical version of pretty much what I had back in Sacramento. Um, so yeah, the whole concept is that, single moms are working together. They live in a communal environment, whether it's a large house or eventually it'll be this actual town with tiny houses and whatnot. But they can just support one another. They're learning how to start an online business or a virtual ministry. They are, if they want to homeschool, basically, they just have this strong network and support, and the resources are working together so that they can eventually move on to do something else that they want. So it will be kind of like a transitional program. It's not permanent. So we kind of expect the single moms after 2 years or 3 years to just
Right.
move on up. It's like you've got this thing, you're ready to fly. So yeah, that's what it is, and I'm really excited about it. We've been able to connect with single moms who are in different parts of the country, and so like right now, I help them when it comes to groceries. So like we do this grocery drive where we
Oh yeah,
we
I did
just
see
send,
you raising money for this yesterday and raised a good amount
yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. So we
I
we
don't
raise.
like I think you were asking for a few thousand and I think you were like 300 off. So
Yeah, yeah. We actually met the goal earlier today. So
okay, nice.
yeah, so I just remember when when I had left everything behind, and I remember feeling like, man, I feel so rich when my refrigerator is full, or when my daughter's belly is full, or and it's just those little things
Things
that
we
kind
take
of
for
give
granted.
us, yeah, it just gives us a little bit of faith to say, okay, if I can get through this week or this month, I can make it to the next. And so that's what I hope to do with the moms. Just, it's like, you got this. I know it's tough. I know it's hard, but you got this. Here's this little gift. Hopefully, this money will help you in some way. So yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm really excited about it.
And isn't that much better than mentioning the Wikipedia statistics for single mothers in the Black community? You
Yes.
actually came up with a project. And like if I were a legislator
Yeah.
and someone like you were doing this in my district, then that's something that I would try to fund and to, make into a larger project.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah,
I'm
that's
hoping will
perfect.
happen. I hope that, more people see what I'm trying to work on and they're like, Felicia, let's put this thing together. And it's a great alternative for women who have to be forced to apply for government aid. I mean, there's so many things you got to do with that whole situation. And it can take a lot of time to get good housing and whatnot. But with this program, it's more so like instant. So, yeah. So hopefully everyone is in prayer with me concerning that.
Right. And so you mentioned Sonny Johnson. and
Yeah.
obviously someone that the both of us are fond of.
Yes.
But tell me, who are your conservative inspirations?
Number one, Sunny. And let me tell you why. People are probably like, how come Felicia talks so much about Sunny Johnson? Here's why. When I was
That's
on
a thought, but go
Facebook,
ahead.
yes, when I was on Facebook, I was getting beat up by all of these conservatives because I had stopped supporting Candace. I had stopped supporting Blexit. And I said, I don't like that we are trash talking Black people. Well, all hell broke loose because of all of that, because they felt like I was causing division. And here comes Sunny Johnson riding on her horse, and she just rescued me. She was like, Felicia, Felicia, don't even worry. People are coming to support you. And like that one bit of encouragement just kept me. And then she invited me on her show. She shared her platform. Um, and so ever since then, I just said Sunny Johnson can get whatever kind of support she wants from me. No questions asked. That's why I'm always marketing her on Saturdays. I'm like, y'all gonna listen to Sunny's Corner. Okay. So I'm big on that because I feel like she has the it factor. She has what it takes to be at that mainstream level. And it makes it so much easier for someone like myself who will be on the ground and actually talking to Black voters and single moms and whatnot. And I can be able to, I can say, you know, there we have a representative at this higher level, at this higher space.
Right.
And she's bringing our stories, she's bringing our voices to the forefront, and she's working on our behalf on this side. So I just feel like she needs it. And I keep telling like the Trump camp, you need to give her whatever she wants. I demand it. I need to see this. So to answer your question, Sunny is like the number one conservative influence at this point in my life. Before her, it was my father. He was just number one as well because he raised
Right.
me in this capacity. And just the love and support that I get from people like you, Jeff Charles, Roderick, James Chief, Hotep, the whole Hotep crew. Um, Everyone has just been such a major support to the work. And I think that's why we
And we're
just
sticking
continue to
supporting each
grow.
other.
Yeah, everyone is supporting each other. And that's the beauty of all of this. So,
And speaking of support, how did you make it through 2020? How is the
ooh.
year panned out for you? I know that I know how you have spoken of the president recently. I don't know at what point in the year that this
Yeah.
turn occurred, but yeah, do share.
Okay, so everyone knows I was a big supporter in 2016. I voted for him. But over the last year, I just grew very irritated with a lot of the things that I've seen. So let's talk his desire for patriot history. Let's start there. Um, there were just these little things that he would do that do not adhere to our basic conservative principles. Like for one, you know, Sunny and I have been pushing hard for conservatives to engage in these healthy dialogues with
Right.
individuals. So, for example, the 1619 project, if it bothers conservatives so much, or critical race theory, that's what they were complaining about.
Mhm.
I'm like, well, if that bothers you so much, have you presented a counter argument? Have you even studied critical race theory? I know I studied it in college and I do not remember it being as vile as conservatives are making it. So I'm just really confused right now. And so all of a sudden we hear from Trump that he has banned this critical race theory from the federal government's training. And in its place, he's going to create patriot history. Trump, I did not vote for
How do you
you.
feel about that?
I did not vote for patriot history. So now I'm like, okay, you're going to, they call it propaganda. So you're going to remove one propaganda and now you're going to replace it with another propaganda as if our public schools don't already have enough of it. So it's just these little things that just, they were just getting to me. And then with him, just being Trump, I guess. At that point, I just said, listen, uh, Trump Black Camp, take his phone away. Just do something right now because I can't defend what he's doing. Like, here we are preaching conservatism. We have so many Black people who are a part of Twitter class. So I know a lot of times Black conservatives have like 95% white people in their audience. Well, Twitter class actually has about 70% white, 30% Black. And I'm like, okay, I need Trump to, give me something good. Like, talk
Right.
about the platinum plan, talk about all these really great things
Yeah, the
that don't
platinum
involve
plan.
talking about. Yes. And he just wouldn't do it. And so I just said at that point, that irritated me. Then he elevated low budget Larry Elder to serve on the Commission of Black Men. I'm like, these people don't even
I
like Black
heard he was put
people.
on a commission from Twitter. I think from you. Excuse me. I think from you, and yet I've heard no one else mention it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just how the news cycles are these days. Something's in the news for 20 seconds. I've heard nothing else about it.
Yeah. I mean,
No
Breitbart was the
information.
one.
Yeah.
Breitbart was the one who talked about Larry Elder being elevated and hired to work on Trump's admin. And I was like, so you picked the person who does not like Black men to serve on a commission for Black men. I said, how did you manage to do this thing? So it was just one thing after the other. And I just got to the point where I said, I can't even vote for him because I can't afford to contribute to this. I wanted him to pivot so badly. I wanted him to, I wanted, the Trump camp to like just talk to him a little bit and say, hey, let's not do these kinds of things. And, we had that kind of access because they follow me in Twitter. They follow Sunny as well. They follow a lot of us in our space. So it
When you
wasn't
talk
like we
about
didn't have
pivoting,
access. Huh?
when you talk about pivoting, I wanted to point out just the fact that again you were working on actual solutions. You're talking about ways to address the issues. You want
Yeah.
to talk about single parents. You have a single parent program. Like
Yeah.
Larry Elder likes to talk about Black men. Whereas you have discussed ways in moving the Black community forward. And the constant refrain to what you just said about Larry Elder, not liking Black people, and people are saying that, well, you need to hear the hard truth. Yeah, but how often are you going to keep repeating the hard truth?
I know. And
Like
the
we
thing,
actually know these things. People, we've
yeah,
grown up hearing this stuff.
yeah,
So what comes next? I'm hearing things that I've heard 10 plus years ago. You're not changing anyone's mind with that. The blight porn, of riding through Detroit, in Chicago, and how you
yeah.
all get off, how you all get off with the uh elevated. Sorry, my
Hmm.
sound did something. Um, the way that you all get off with the shooting counts going up,
I know.
like we have to discuss something else. I should not be
Yeah,
hearing this 10 plus years later.
yeah.
Please move off of the Wikipedia page. That's
I
all
know.
I ask.
I know. And the thing is that they're using decades old stats for their talking points. So I talked about how if people wanted to right now, they could go to Instagram and they can look up hashtag Black marriage, hashtag Black family, hashtag Black wealth. They'll see all of these millennials who are crushing it, who are changing the way the culture views all of these different social and economic situations. I said, so things are changing drastically. How come we're not praising these individuals? Why aren't we talking about their stories? Why aren't we bringing them to our conservative platforms when they're doing the work? Well, they don't want to because it doesn't feed the base. It
Right.
doesn't pay those checks. So it was things like that that just bothered me. And at that point, I said, well, I can't vote for Trump. And of course, folks, assume if you don't vote for Trump, that means you're voting for Biden. No, there were other people on the ballot. So
Yeah.
there's that.
And I'll add, you did say that the person who sells peace is going to win. And
Yes,
you constantly said that, and you were telling the president that you need to preach peace, that you need
yes,
to say something that's going to bridge people together.
Yes.
And after election night and the electoral, college, well, they haven't
Yeah.
voted, but
Yeah.
after things have pretty much been called,
Yeah.
you were repeating yourself loud and clear. I told you all that
Yes.
the president needed to preach peace. So
Yes. Yes.
you feel vindicated in that.
I do, and I guess you could say it was worth all the getting beat up and stuff. But I'm like, listen, it wasn't as if I was trash talking him and not telling his camp how to pivot. I'm like, this is the solution. This is what people are asking for right now. Deliver.
Right.
You deliver, they'll vote. And they made the other choice. They chose the degrading stuff instead. And I'm like, well, Black voters flexed hard. They flexed so hard this election.
Pretty much. And by the way, do you think the president is going to win these lawsuits that are currently going on?
Child, no. These things are just attempts to keep the voter base excited and hopeful. And I've told them hope is not a winning strategy. You get on the ground, you do the work, you don't
Actual
hope
work.
to win. You get in there and win. So, no, as far as I know, the majority of the courts have rejected his lawsuits. Different lawyers have been pulling out their support simply because it's not a winnable situation. Down here in Georgia, I read that they did the recount, I suppose, and the Secretary of State has said there's no fraud. So, how long is the delusional tour going to last? How long are they going to keep this thing up? Well, they'll keep it up as long as he can. Oh, I think the sound went out.
Sorry, I was testing it.
There.
Yes. So I'm not I'm not an election fraud expert. The Heritage Foundation keeps a running
Mhm,
track of election fraud. People go to jail almost every single election cycle, and I go through the
mhm.
cases, and they're generally, we've yet to see one where they've gone to jail for like 10,000 votes or something like that, and it's usually nowhere near that. Like 1,000 or so. So, I mean, they've got an uphill battle to climb with that. That's all I can say. Are you still there? Trying to see if Felicia froze.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you are. I think you froze for a
Yes.
second.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
All right. Yeah, I was saying I think that he has an uphill battle with that
Yeah,
because, as I said, I've not
definitely.
seen any of those cases that I followed for years ever
Hmm.
exceed changing more than 1,000 votes, and that was an extreme. I don't even think that's me being generous
Yeah.
to give
Yeah.
a tortuous number.
Well,
So
when it comes to the voter fraud, it's just something for conservatives to hold on to. Again, it's the type of hopeful strategy. Does voter fraud happen? Yeah, of course it does. Black people have been talking about it forever, but they were told that it was just in their head and that it never happens, and yada yada. So it's like, well, why do you expect me or any other Black person to get hyped up about this when they told you voter fraud and voter suppression was a real issue? So I think Biden is ahead by 5.6 million votes, and I mean, where's Trump going to get these extra votes to crush it? He lost Georgia. Georgia flipped. I couldn't believe. Well, I can believe it, but it's just like I didn't think I would see it this year.
right,
I just moved
and
here from California, so I'm like, okay, maybe a couple years or whatever. This thing happened this
and
year.
that's with people standing around waiting to vote for 4 and 5 and 6 hours down there.
Yes, that's how serious they were, and I kind of saw how they mobilized voters during the primary, and I said, "Oh my gosh, they are very, very serious about this whole thing. So right now, the Senate runoff is the big that needs to be number one. Unfortunately, conservatives are still hungover with the Trump juice, and so yeah. But the focus really should be on the Georgia runoff. But we'll we'll see what happens.
Right. And so we were talking about your Twitter class. Do you mind
Yeah.
telling everyone what this is?
So, Twitter class is where we engage in different lessons related to hot topics or some things that are trending. Like earlier
So full
today.
disclaimer, I tune in anytime I'm scrolling and I see Twitter class and I'm like, yep, let me go pull up my seat. I can
Yes.
learn
So,
too.
yeah, it's an interesting interaction where conservatives, Black voters, independents, Democrats can actually have a time to engage in dialogue that they probably would not have in any other kind of setting. So, earlier today we talked about the student loan forgiveness. And of course, conservatives are like, no, they should not be forgiven. And
I
I'm
just
like,
saw that.
so I just said, well, let me trigger them. I started talking about some scriptures and loans being canceled and how, preachers are always talking about God's going to cancel your debt. Well, here comes the government talking about we want to
Oh, that's
cancel debt.
funny. That's funny. I've never thought of that one. That's a good one.
Yes,
That is a good one.
that's what happens. So I'm challenging conservatives. I'm like, you've got to figure out your talking points now because the ones that you've been using have failed you. If you can't present these arguments cohesively and persuasively, nobody's going to jump on the conservative bandwagon and we're going to continue losing. So that's what we do in Twitter class. It's really a place for you to get triggered and to have your
You do a
thoughts
very
challenged.
good job at it, though.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you're an author. You've written a number of books now. How did this transition come? And I'll just state that I first announced that I was going to write one, I think, on a
Okay.
plane in 2014. In fact, this was after I did a speech with Sonny Johnston in 2014,
Okay.
riding a plane back, and I tweeted, I'm going to write a book.
Okay.
6 years later, I just stumbled across this tweet, and I was like, wow, is that long ago? Well, what do you have? And how much do you have? Is it a page? Did you get to two yet? So, how did you get into doing that? Being as though, which you've not um, touched on, you being a um, teacher for part of your life. How
Yeah.
did you make the transition from teacher to author?
Yeah. So education is just what I love to do. Teaching is, I'm a teacher at heart, educator at heart. So after I left the profession, I talked about my transition in my book called To My Beloveds. Pretty much everybody knows about the Googles and searching and my case and whatnot. I talk about my book and how God delivered me from that case after a couple of years. But because of the situation being so dangerous, I was traumatized and I was like, I can't go back into the school system. So I decided to use my skill set in a different capacity. My birth mom, she's actually a published author. And she had this book that needed
Okay,
to
I
be
didn't know
edited.
that.
Yeah. And so I worked on that book project with her. And pretty soon she started to circulate my name to other authors. And that's kind of how I got into the self publishing industry. Yeah. And then I decided to just go ahead and write my book. So by the time I got into the conservative politics, I realized I needed to package my message a little bit more clearly so that people who come across the platform they can easily just read the content for themselves because I hate repeating myself to these folks. I'm like, man, here you go.
No, that's
Here's the book. Yeah, so that's how it happened. And the book set, the Conscious Conservative book set, actually includes my memoir. It includes Conscious Black Conservatism, which really talks about the spiritual laws that guide our movement. And then the third book is a 1520 Rise, which teaches conscious conservatives how to effectively evangelize to Black voters. So it's been doing very well. I think I've sold about 300 copies, something like that. So that's
very
pretty good.
good. It
Yeah.
is. What would you say the biggest misconceptions about Felecia Killings are?
Oh, I don't know. Where do I begin? I mean, some people have called me a false prophet. They've called me a false teacher. They've said I'm
Right.
jealous. They say, I want just clout and attention. And I'm like, well, let me double down on the work. If that's the case. Gosh, I think the biggest misconception is that I'm out
But
here
don't we
trying.
have to actually like work to get what we're doing in front of people, right? Like do people
Exactly.
not forget that? So any type of promotion at all, so much as a tweet, people
Yeah.
get up in arms about. Like, calm down.
Yes. Yes.
No one's
So I
forcing you to look at it.
the biggest misconception is believing that I'm doing this for some kind of clout. And I'm like, if that's the case, I did it all wrong. Because I don't never tell conservatives what they want to hear. I never say the talking
Oh
points.
yeah.
I just did it all wrong. I didn't follow any kind of the playbook. So I'm just out
Good
here.
point.
I'm doing my best to represent the kingdom of God and to share with people that we can do things differently. We can get his results. And, if I see folks who are using our beautiful ideology as a method to be a weapon against people, I'm going to bring a weapon too. And my weapon
Which
so,
is funny. I just opened Twitter last night, and I swear the first thing I see is Angela King on Periscope. And I click it, and she said, I can't fight, but I can shoot. And I said, oh. I actually
oh,
closed it back. I said, I'm afraid of what I just walked into.
oh man.
Atlanta, I think your Atlanta's are rubbing off on you.
I, so I don't know. I don't know. I've always been kind of feisty and sharp with my words. People back home kind of know me for that way too, but I've learned how to control it in a way that still brings about good things and not necessarily
Right.
beating up folks just to beat them up. It's like, no, I'm attacking
Yeah,
the
this
words.
is why it's called Twitter class. I mean, it's always done constructively. So
Yes.
that I
Yeah.
can say, you're not just running around on Twitter with, swinging a sword around, just lopping off heads just for the fun of it. And it's the last time I'm bringing your name up. But
Yeah.
like, I think the first time that I recall going to Candace on Twitter, I am followed by Charlie Kirk, and I like wrote a message and I said, this person is your communications director. Like she represents your organization. What is going on here? Like she just called Roland Martin, like she said that he was like a hamburger or something. Like he's many things. Dumb
Yeah.
is not one of them.
Yeah.
And you don't like disrespect people like that. And then when I went to
Yeah.
the response, I was like, okay. And I'm realizing, okay, this is part of the point.
Yeah.
This is what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate you for not doing that.
Thank you.
There's many things to get the guy on.
Yeah.
Go watch. He's very substantive. So there's
Yes.
plenty of substance to go rip apart
Yeah.
without calling the man a cartoon character.
I
But
know. I know.
2021 is around the corner,
Yes.
um, and I know that we mentioned conservatives that you like, and we're not supposed to like the other side of the aisle. But
Yeah.
I happen to have some Democrats that I like. I have
Yes.
many that I'm friends with. I happen to be friends with, I think, the chapter head of DC's BLM, and don't
Okay.
understand how. But
Okay.
engaging in conversation. We bounce
Yes.
off of each other.
Yeah.
But with that being said, do you have any Democrats that you actually engage?
Yeah. In fact, almost
Mhm.
all the Black people inside Twitter class are basically Democrat or independent. And they have been a really great support. They're like, Felecia, we really like what you're trying to do. I think they understand that I wasn't trying to get them to leave their party. I was like, I respect your voice, I respect your vote, but you deserve dual domination. You deserve choices. And I think that they appreciate that much about it. I don't know very many inf- influencers who are Black and Democrat, mostly because I am just so surrounded by the right. But my supporters have been, Black Democrats, and they know how I feel about progressivism. They know how I feel about that garbage. So it's not like I have to compromise to keep them happy and compromise to keep conservatives happy. I'm like, man, I love the principles so much. And it's good enough on their own. We don't have to do all of this other weird stuff. We can crush it if we just stick to the principles and present them, the way that they should be.
Absolutely. And so, what is it you'd like to see us do next year? What
Ooh.
should be the focus, both the right, the left, local, state, federal government, all of it? What should we be working on next year?
I guess it depends on who what we're focusing on specifically. So, right now, unfortunately, conservatives are still caught up into Trump's whatever. They still have hope. So it's kind of hard to get them to focus on anything right now at this point. But I know for those of us who are part of this movement, our focus will be aggressive evangelism of conscious conservatism. I really want to start talking to Black Georgians about what's happening out here in terms of politics. I want to get their stories. I really want to understand why Black voters are so adverse to Republicans at the local level.
I think you just broke up. Still there? All right.
Okay, I got cut off again. But anyways, I was saying that I know that I know Black voters don't like Trump. I get it. We can move on from that. But I
Mhm.
do want to know what's going on the ground. And I would hate to see something happen here that kind of happened in California, where we had local progressive leaders completely destroy some of our economies. So
Right.
um, I want to get their stories. I want to sit down with Black voters and just chat with them, especially the young ones. I want to learn what is it that they're looking for, and would they be open to, the Republican Party if it actually came and courted them. So that's going to be my focus. I also have different individuals who want to figure out how they can mobilize as well at the local level. But when it comes to, will I have access to the White House kind of like I do right now in terms of communication? I don't know. I hope so. I'm waiting to hear
Well,
and see
I
what's
hope
coming
so too.
up. Huh?
I said, I hope you do too.
Yeah. I'm eager to see what's going to happen next. I don't believe my time is up when it comes to this. Um,
Absolutely not.
yeah. I've been trying to get out of it, but they keep pulling me back in.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you ever had any moment of where you just said, why am I doing this? That my talents could be used for something else?
Yes, I'm telling you, I was already there, and Sunny Johnson came and rescued me. That's why I just praise her so much. But I did. I was like, I could do so much, so many other things. I've even had some Black Democrats who were like, Felecia, come on over here. We'll appreciate it.
Okay.
And
They
I'm just
love it,
like,
right?
yes. I'm like, but you guys, this is all I know. And so I'm confident with where God placed me.
I think she just froze. Doo-doo-doo. Felicia. Oh, I hear you. All right. You just froze for a second. Hey, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm so sorry. My
That's
Wi-Fi.
okay.
But Anyways, I was saying that my outlet is really working with single moms, helping women, doing book publishing. So when the conservative stuff just really gets to me, I can rely on this thing to kind of bring me back to earth. So
Yeah. And I try to tell people that, at least for myself, when if I'm feeling discouraged in, whether it's an argument with someone or, there are people who like to, while I'm physically outside doing things, whether it's campaigning or whatnot, like I was door knocking in the rain and whatnot. I was supposed to be thrown into a dunking booth in the
okay.
middle of October, but we decided not to do that
Yeah,
for the
good.
campaign. Um, but like while I'm doing these things, every so often, a troll appears.
Yeah.
Like someone will comment on something. You didn't have a mask on.
Yeah.
While I'm interviewing
Yeah.
someone, or you all weren't social distance. You know, all that type of nonsense. I try to in moments like that, you have enough of a support system, and
Yeah.
remind yourself that you're actively doing things,
Yeah.
whereas the people who generally are saying something
Yeah.
are not. I mean, what
Exactly.
was this sort of viral video that
Hmm.
the Hoteps did with someone? I think it's one of the MAGA rappers, where he was
Okay.
saying that he kept saying, "If you go into the black community, I bet
Uh,
this will happen. If you go into the black community," and they said, "Dude, why do I have to go there? You act like it's a field trip. Go ahead and pack your lunch. We gonna go to the black community." He said, "Dude, I'm already there."
yes, exactly. You
you
have to have
know,
something else. Otherwise, it can drive you crazy because you're dealing with people who aren't going to think as intellectually about politics as everybody else will. And you have folks who are grifters, you have folks who find this as entertainment. This is their celebrity status. And then there's those of us who are like, man, we actually need politics to protect our economics. So yeah, I have my escape, and it still involves helping in some kind of way. So
I appreciate it. So I'm not going to hold you. Before you go, could you let everyone know where to find you online for the two people out there who don't already know?
oh yes, you guys can go to FeleciaKillings.org. That's Felicia with two e's.org. And you can learn more about the movements there. And so yeah. Or you can go to Twitter class. Now I warn you, you have to have, thick
A little
skin to be
tough
a Twitter.
sometimes.
Yes.
All right, and for myself, at JaVonni Brustow on Twitter, Facebook, all that
Mhm.
other good stuff. I think we're live streaming on YouTube already. So yeah, don't have to put that out. And until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on.